or they will use visual memes to avoid textual detection. So one of the things that I get pretty frequently as a woman in my 30s without children is I get sent pictures of empty egg cartons, which are meant to remind me that my fertility is waning.
This is HBR News number 439. What does Gonzalo Lira's story tell us? The return of Forever Wars, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello everyone and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian Martinez. I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, Dr. Ryder McCam and Hannah Wallen.
Not laughing about it, to be honest. Kind of trying not to be consumed by it, but
yes,
laughing about it either. I'll do my best.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
Not laughable.
We'll do our best. Anyway, so please consider joining us in the comment section and contribute to this discussion in the chat. On this week's HBR News show, we're going to be talking about the passing of one Gonzalo Lira, also known as Coach Red Pill. There is also a story of a toddler that was allegedly poisoned by the girlfriend of the toddler's father. Entryism to the Boy Scouts and more, so stick around, it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So I've been trying to promote my friend John Delarose's website called Fandom Pulse. It is a competitor for a website he used to write for called Bounding Into Comics, but apparently Bounding Into Comics has sold out, so he started his own thing. And so we're going to be looking at an article from Fandom Pulse. We hope that you will join us. Apparently there's a full, you probably heard about the film. I did a video on He Said, She Said about it like a while back. It was a trailer for a new movie called Civil War. And no, it's not the one with the superheroes in it. This is actually about like a civil war in America, directed by Alex Garland, who you might know as the director of the film Ex Machina and Men, which were both basically very misandrist feminist movies. And he's going to be talking about, I guess like how awful people in America are with this movie. And we're going to find out a little bit more about it and how hysterical people are about this fictional example of something they really want really badly. And since we're talking about war a lot in the show today, I thought it would be an appropriate thing to look at, like a fictional account or somebody's perspective on it. So we're going to be doing that in the patron show. So please consider joining us. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find out we've been yeeted from the internet, please go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com, where all of our content lives. And if you want to join us in the patron show, go to feedthebadger.com and set up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to enjoy all of this additional content and the lively and active sort of community in there. And if you really want to, you can hang out with Allison while she struggles to play Final Fantasy XIV and troll her. So that could also be worth the $5 all by itself. All right, so with all of that out of the way, let us now get into today's story. So first, I'm going to play this little clip. I'm going to share this with Mike and Hannah too. I might as well, so you guys can see. I did that wrong. Sorry, my bad. I don't know why it did that. I was supposed to click on something else. I'm sorry. Weird, my fault. Okay, and this is if you guys, can you guys see it? Mike and Hannah, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Is it in live show or HBO News? Which room is it in?
No, it's in the Video Ninja. It's in the thing I'm sharing.
God. Oh yeah, I can't. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is the last, from what I know, this is the last video that he posted before his disappearance, and then I'll read the write-up. Okay. So here we go.
I'm a little stressed out, as you can imagine, but they have that saying that People are fundamentally good, but for evil to triumph, all you need is the indifference of good people. Please don't be indifferent to my fate. I ask you this very humbly. Please recognize that, well, the literal death that awaits me if this doesn't work out.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing this right now because that was the only thing I really wanted to share. So filmer, YouTuber, journalist, and American citizen Gonzalo Lira, better known as Coach Red Pill, has died while in the custody of the Ukrainian Security Service. Lira had been detained for the past several months for the crime of producing content that was critical of the Ukrainian government and Volodymyr Zelensky. Just weeks before his death was confirmed by the State Department, his sister received a handwritten letter from him detailing how he developed double lung pneumonia, which was ignored for several months. He detailed that he was to have surgery for the issue, but it appears that that was not successful. The news of his death was first broken on X/Twitter by Tucker Carlson, who had also interviewed Lira's father. Platform owner Elon Musk responded to the tweet stating, quote, "An American citizen is in a prison in Ukraine after we sent over $100 billion. Is there more to this story than simply criticizing Zelensky? If that's all it is, then we have a serious problem here," end quote.
Okay, I have to ask this. How many people out there think Coach Red Pill deserved to die? That's not a rhetorical question. I have seen people online and in public actually gloating with genuine glee over this man's death. Now, that's nothing new. It's par for the course. Men are widely considered expendable, especially the men that any given person does not like. I never particularly liked Coach Red Pill either, but I don't think he deserved to die. Even in the event that he criticized my favorite thing. Quite how Volodymyr Zelensky became anyone's favorite thing is still a mystery to me, but here's what you have to believe in order to arrive at that mindset, with your conscience apparently intact. The mindset wherein a man deserves to die because he criticized the installed leader of one of the world's most corrupt governments. You have to believe that he was responsible for his own death, that it was his own fault, perhaps down to his own self-inflicted poor health, that he got pneumonia severe enough to kill him, and that he would have died even if he was never in prison. You have to believe it was a coincidence, and that the neglect inflicted in Ukrainian prisons is either also par for the course or simply non-existent, and that prison guards of a corrupt government are in fact doing everything they possibly can. You have to believe that they have no obligation to treat prisoners of war humanely, even if their only crime was communication. You have to believe he deserved to be imprisoned for the crime of such communication. You need to behold him as a dangerous traitor and perhaps a Putin apologist, and that Zelensky's hands were tied and he had no choice but to arrest him and imprison him and leave him to die. And that this all follows organically because all is fair in love and war after all. And to justify all of that, you have to believe that this is a just and righteous war, with unequivocal good guys and unequivocal bad guys, and that Zelensky is a hero and a liberator, and so is Joe Biden. You have to strongly believe that there is every good reason for this war to still be going on after 2 years. These justifications happen in reverse order, as you may have noticed. If you believe wholeheartedly and without hesitation that this war is a black and white case of good versus evil, then everything else falls in place. Anything can fall in place. And within a couple of steps, you're out here celebrating the murder, and I'm going to call it murder, of civilians for the crime of speech. Many such cases. And when I say Zelensky is a murderer and a war criminal and a tin pot dictator, and all you can say in response is, so is Putin. You commit what you, in any other situation, would probably call a whataboutism. Let's make this clear. I agree. Putin is an evil bastard. I think everyone outside Russia and many people within it would also indubitably agree that he's an evil bastard, but so is Zelensky. That's why I don't support either of them. But that's not good enough. It's not good enough for the bloodthirsty warmongers who suffer under the delusion that they know everything there is to know, that they have the spidey senses to see through all the thick layers of the fog of war and be absolutely certain of the truth they see. And they land right back on that oh so poignant of adages. If you're not with us, you're against us. And if that's your attitude, you can expect, at the very least, to lose some friends. And in that, you only have yourself to blame. When you make enemies, even of neutral observers and conscientious objectors, and even the people who express no opinion whatsoever, you are not the good guys. When you're grinning like a Cheshire cat over the death of non-violent civilians, you are not the good guys. You have become something extremely sinister. So don't be surprised when people see what you're doing and silently think to themselves, bruh, and they walk the fuck away. It's very tempting to say shame on you as I walk away, but if you're that far gone already, then shame will do nothing. I would ask that you take a look in the mirror at what you've become, but if you're that far gone already, there's no use. I won't even inform you that you are not to be trusted ever again, because I'm sure the feeling is mutual anyway. After all, I'm not with you and your sociopathic lust for this forever war. It's just sad. That's all it is at the end of the day. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. Well, no, I am actually quite angry. But when the anger eventually dissipates, I'll just be sad. You'll just be yet another sad memory of a fallen soul. And yes, I know you don't care. That's fine. I'm saying all of this to speak for those who do care, or at least who think they can still try to care. The very few who are left who didn't fall for the sexist tyranny, the racist tyranny, or the biochemical warfare, or the good old-fashioned ordinary warfare. You are all dead to me. And I'm okay with that. I can only fit like 150 people in my immediate give-a-fuck zone anyway. So, all the best. I hope you can live with yourself. I hope I'm
one of those 150 people.
Yeah, you're one of the top 10.
Aww. Thanks,
the rest of you, I hope the totalitarian war machine you support lets you live with yourself. When you're the one saying shit it doesn't like. But yeah, I'm pressing X. Always pressing X. Formerly Twitter.
Yeah. Musk asking, is there more to this story than simply criticizing Zelensky? Yes. Yeah, there is. There is a lot more to this story than simply criticizing Zelensky, right? He criticized the status quo before he criticized Zelensky, and that's not allowed. Criticize the establishment, the feminist establishment, the anti-male establishment. Can't do that. So it takes away how many friends this guy's going to have in high places that will fight for him. So basically, we've seen now our country allow a man to die for what wouldn't be a crime in our country, and what shouldn't be a crime in any country. You know, no government that kills people for criticizing the government is valid or good. They're just those things are not compatible, right? But our country, our establishment, the people in charge of our country let this man die because they didn't like him. They let him die because they didn't like his criticisms, not of the other country he was in, but of our own. Of the status quo that men face, as they didn't like the criticisms of the establishment, the discrimination, the treatment in society of men. This could be any one of us. Travel to a foreign country, say the wrong thing, get jailed, and because we're not popular with the establishment, and they don't like us, they will do nothing. If you smoke a joint in another country, or you try to bring steroids illegally into another country, or go to another country for sex tourism that you shouldn't be engaging in, or something like that, where it's actually something that would be looked down on here, or at the very least, it's something that's not worth doing. Because hashing out ideas is worth doing. Then somebody like Joe Biden will fight tooth and nail. If you go to another country and you engage in debauchery or any kind of shit behavior, but you are a darling of the establishment, a darling of the woke left, then yeah, they'll fight tooth and nail to get you back. They'll fight tooth and nail to make sure nothing bad happens to you. And they'll care very much to make sure that everybody knows how evil the people are that are doing that to you, and how important it is to save your life and get you back. But if you're one of us, whether all of us agree with everything you say or not, whether everybody likes the way everybody says everything they say that maybe we do or don't with, doesn't matter. If you're one of the outcasts, one of the apostates, right, one of the wrong thinkers, then you're fucked. That's pretty much what this tells us. So there's a lot more to this story than simply criticizing Zelensky. A line is drawn. If you aren't an obedient, cowed, dominated citizen of the New World Order, then you can just fucking die. That's the line.
Yeah. Although, I think Zelensky is a part of that machine. Maybe not the only part, but definitely a part. We are looking at a number of conflicts all over the world now that seem to be like spontaneously erupting, right? First we had Russia and Ukraine. Then we got Gaza and Israel. And Taiwan and China. There's like saber rattling going on there. There was stuff between China and India. I don't know if you knew that, but that was kind of like a while back. I don't know if that's gone anywhere. And now we're looking at the Houthis in Yemen. And it's like it's just escalations all around, right? The border of Texas has the National Guard trying to keep the migrants from entering because Biden's not doing anything about it. And I think that none of these things are accidental, and it's all connected. And yeah, if you criticize any symptom of this, you could become a target. I mean, the only reason why I think he was targeted, they're saying he was spreading Russian propaganda or something like that. I don't think that is at all important. I don't care what he was talking about. I mean, one could easily make the case that any one of us is spreading propaganda and should be jailed or murdered for it. So that's not the issue.
Anything they don't want to hear from you is Russian propaganda.
Yeah, anything they don't want to hear from you is Russian propaganda or whatever, right? Pro, Israel propaganda or pro-Palestine propaganda. It doesn't matter. The point is that they
originated in Russia.
What?
It doesn't even have to have originated.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's just whatever is they're just looking for a way to cross, check the boxes that allow them to justify essentially, taking away your freedoms and potentially imprisoning you and murdering you. And this will happen with January 6th. There are people in jail today that didn't do anything. They didn't even enter the building and they're in jail. So this is definitely a big thing. The thing that there is something a little scary about this too, about specifically this guy, Coach Red Pill. I never met him, but he is like literally like 1 degree of separation from us, because I know people who know him, right? Who have like spoken to him or whatever. And your opinions on him, I don't care. Don't matter. Obviously, no one deserves to die for that. No one. So like, you can say, oh, he was a dick or whatever, but come on. That's kind of stupid in this like wider context of everything that's happened. Like that's like the last thing that people should be saying. What they should be saying is, holy shit. If this could happen to that, it could happen to anyone, and including people and including you yourself, right? And the question is, what do we do? Because we've been talking about this stuff for 10 years now. And it's not exactly the same conversations that he's been having, and we're not in the place that he is, but that's kind of like something that could change very easily, And I would ask too, that if you've been inconvenienced in some way in your life, I want you to think about him, because and count your blessings, because that's a terrible outcome. He didn't just die, he suffered. Here's the letter he wrote to his sister by hand. He says, tell my sister, or he wrote to someone to tell her, tell my sister, I have had a double pneumonia, both lungs, as well as pneumothorax or thorax, and a very severe case of edema, swelling of the body. All this started in mid-October, but was ignored by the prison. They only admitted I had pneumonia at a December 22nd hearing. I'm about to have a procedure to reduce the edema pressure in my lungs, which is causing the extreme shortness of breath to the point of passing out after minimal activity or even just talking for 2 minutes. Gonzalo. So it seems that he was tortured, basically. He was tortured to death because they neglected to help him. So they just let this happen, and he just decayed and died in prison. And there are people who would say that isn't a murder. But I think that you're smarter than that. I think our audience is smarter than that. So this is, this shouldn't happen to anyone, especially if they're just trying to like give their opinions and report on things. I don't care if he's lying. I don't care. I don't think he was, because like if he was, there would be no need to do this. And by the way, maybe he would have been better off if he was like a 6'11" trans, basketball player that was trying to smuggle weed into the country instead of like a journalist. Maybe they would have traded like the Lord of War for this guy. How about that? Like, do you see, like, obviously you guys are aware of the Brittany Griner case, where she was stopped at the border because she was trying to bring drugs into Russia, and Biden bailed her out and traded like a weapons dealer named the Lord of War. They made a movie about him with Nicolas Cage. It's very good, by the way. And Gonzalo, they just let him rot. So they're telling you, like, this is the way it is, and they're in charge, and they do what they want. And so we have to remember that, and that's gonna have to be like something we put in our, put into perspective. This is why we have to like be vocal and act on these things. This shouldn't happen to anyone. So I don't know. Well, hopefully his family will see justice, and I'm sorry this happened, and my condolences to everyone that knows him or knew him. That's all I can say. Just a terrible thing that should never have happened. Anyway, does anybody else have any final thoughts on this before we move on? Okay. Well, I got some super chows, so I think I'm gonna read those really quick. So here's one that came earlier today before our show. It was very early in the morning, from the Canterbury Panther, who gave us $5 and says the 20th century was the age of dictators. The 21st century is the age of cuntators. Get it?
Okay.
No, nobody. Okay.
Yeah.
I know. It's cringe.
It's time for dark humor. This is the only. I remember standing on the witness stand in court in Calgary defending graveyard humor. Now is the time for graveyard humor, because it is what keeps you from completely losing your mind when shit gets nasty and real and dark and ugly and painful and makes you despondent.
Yeah.
If it keeps you from getting crushed by reality.
Mm-hmm.
So that keep the dark humor coming.
Yeah, no, how else could we cope? That's what humor's for. It's usually is to help us cope with tragedy. So, Meredith. So I got another super chat from Meredith G for $5, and she just says HBR News number 439, honey for the Badgers, and she is the GOAT.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why he's gonna be me. That's why he's the GOAT. The GOAT.
And then we got one from Richard Bier for $5, and he says there is a reason that they use espionage claims as justification to imprison people. The excuse for the missile attack on the U.S. consulate was the claim that it was operated as an espionage front for Mossad. Thank you, Richard Bier, for that piece of information. Never thought my whole thing would be like, talking about geopolitics, but here we are. We start talking about men, and all of a sudden it just gets a little out of control.
You end up having to talk about geopolitics because all of our world leaders, and I can't think of an exception off the top of my head, all of our world leaders treat men as disposable cannon fodder.
Yep.
And right now they're pointing those cannons at each other, and they're in the process of stuffing them with men.
Yeah, I think it's one of the ways they justify all these endless wars, because they propagandize people into thinking of men as disposable, and then they do stuff like this, and then they blame men for it. How about that? They blame men for wars. So, all right.
That get threatened with jail and death, imprisonment and death for not going. By the way.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, of course. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Did you know about Coach Red Pill? Did you hear about this before? I don't know how widely reported it is. I know Tucker Carlson did a thing on it. I was very impressed with that. Because he's, like I said, he's kind of like in our circles. He was in our circles. Before that, I don't know if you know, but before that, he used to make like the occasional appearance on like news like shows. Like they'd have like a little segment on something geopolitical, and he would come on and because I guess he was a journalist, like before he started doing the Coach Red Pill stuff, he was appearing on like Fox News and stuff and talking about stuff going on in the world. So just saying, it wasn't like he just came out of nowhere. But anyway, let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. All right, next story. The US and UK militaries have launched attacks on the Iran-backed Houthi targets in Yemen last week after attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Today, the US military carried out a new strike against Houthi and anti-ship ballistic missiles. According to Reuters, the Houthis, who control the most populous parts of Yemen, have claimed their attacks on commercial ships were aimed at supporting the Palestinians in Israel's war in Gaza. So the only reason why Hannah, you shared this. I'm sure you have something to say to it, but I chose this because this is just another example of what I was saying before. Like we have basically living in a time of more endless, pointless wars to just kill off as many men as it takes on both sides of a given conflict, so that some small percentage of people could get power and wealth, and probably keep people in a state of chaos so they can't assert themselves. So anyway, Anna, what did you want to say?
with regard to this specific type of hostility, the thing that struck me was specifically the attacks on commercial ships and how the news is reporting on this and everything. You have to understand, historically, that's something that the United States has used as an excuse to get involved in foreign wars. They're attacking our commercial ships. They're preventing us from doing business with one country or the other. They're blockading us, this and that. Our commerce is being affected. Like, not they're threatening our people, not they're coming here and doing things here that are acts of war, but that we are sending supplies to their enemy and they stopped us. That's the excuse. And hundreds of thousands of American men have died for that excuse.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to be vigilant of. When you see the news reporting on this, it's on one hand, it's an interesting thing, right, about what's going on in the world. But on the other hand, we now have the U.S. military getting involved. We now have the U.S. military openly joining this. This is now the United States being involved in a military conflict that our involvement makes it a war. Because they stopped us from supplying one side or the other with stuff. And that's it. So American men's lives are at stake over money again. And the people who objected to Desert Storm, the people who objected to Desert Shield, the people who objected to everything that the conservatives did during the 90s, and then came back later and said, we told you so, once the other side started to catch up and say, yeah, that actually was wrong. They should be objecting to this. There should be a very loud, very angry wave of objection to this going across the United States. Why are we getting involved in this? Why are we getting our military, which is mostly men, only 14% of our military is women, and most of them are not in combat.
In combat roles or on the front line.
Right,
yeah.
They're not in, nothing like that, right? Most of them are going to be sitting at a desk on the other side of the ocean, directing, what the men do, or making sure that they still have medical insurance and stuff like that for when their bodies get torn limb from limb by bombs. And that is essentially the bottom line here.
Yeah.
Seems
like there's quite the rabbit hole.
And we hear all the time from feminists, from left-wingers, from even some right-wingers, that our objection to the draft is puerile. It's unnecessary. It's us being panic mongers and stuff like that. Our objection to selective service and how only men have to sign up for it, and it allows for male disposability to be perpetuated and exploited.
Yep.
That here our situation is our unit, our military has been actually involving our ships, our men, our weapons, and our supplies in conflicts that our government has been telling us that we're not involved in. And yeah, they attacked one of our ships. They attacked an American ship. But they attacked an American ship that was not there for innocent reasons. It's a lot like if you had a group of kids at the park, and I'm going to compare this to a group of kids because I'm tired of comparing it to the fucking Hatfield and McCoy battle that's been over for a long time. So you have a group of kids at the park, right? And you've got, I don't know, Billy and George are in a fight, and Johnny is standing off to the side and handing Billy rocks and telling Billy, hit him in the gut, hit him in the side, kick him in the shins, bust out his kneecaps, and occasionally throws rocks at George himself, right? Like at that point, he can't claim to be uninvolved in the fight anymore. If somebody hits him for what he's doing, if one of George's friends hits him, or George hits him and says, cut it out, and he steps back and says, I wasn't doing anything. Yes, you were. Our government was. Our military was. You don't get to stick your fingers into the fight. You don't get to throw rocks at the other side. You don't get to hand supplies to one side or the other. You don't get to give money to one side or the other. You don't get to provide weapons to one side or the other. You don't get to play world police, and you don't get to play agitator, world agitator, and then pretend to be innocent and act outraged when somebody says, cut that out, and hits you. And everybody should be outraged that our citizens, our men, were put in that position in the first place. Mm-hmm. Not that we're fighting back, but that we shoved them in there in the first place. That shouldn't have happened.
Well, you know, it's funny too, is that like for all these like conflicts that are like propping up, our military has probably like never had like lower morale or had like the lowest level of enlistment, right? Which kind of like also suggests that the draft is even more likely to happen, because you know a lot of men they don't want to fight for this shit. They don't want to go to war for this. They're not interested in this. And you know, more power to them. I don't blame them at all. Like you know, like why would you want to fight and die for a country that hates you, with an administration that hates you for who you are? What?
They are talking about bringing it back.
Because they're not getting men to sign up like willingly because they hate them. So yeah, of course they're going to bring it back. I think it's going to get tabled, you know, if things keep going the way they're going and these wars, something doesn't happen to stop this shit, they're probably going to institute it very soon. They're going to push the draft. It also means that, like, you know, that's a lot of dudes not voting in 2024 if they do that. So there's another thing. I mean, I don't know. A lot of men don't want to die for these foreign wars, and I don't blame them. That's all I'm saying. So plus, you know, the military and the government has just been shaming men, particularly white men, for what, 50 years? I mean, why would, if you were a white guy that you lived in this country, why the hell would you sign up? Why would you fight in for anyone? Just you know, take care of your family.
This is why I always try and get in there first, folks. Because if I let these two talk first, they'll make most of the points I was thinking of making.
Oh, okay. I'll shut up. Go ahead. You can repeat yourself.
This one's a bit trickier than the first story, at least on the surface, even for a conscientious objector. This isn't about a YouTuber who got killed for speaking. This is, at least ostensibly, an act of violence in retaliation for an act of violence. It would perhaps be a little bit short-sighted to reflexively say there's no justification for that sort of thing. When someone attacks you, you'd better attack back, or you're basically inviting them to keep pushing you around. It's even understandable to escalate in such a situation. If someone sucker punches you in the back of the head, you can go ahead and break their nose so they don't do it again. But, of course, this is all assuming we're being told the truth. It's assuming the Houthi attacks were not themselves a retribution for something else, something we're not being told about. That is very possible. When something happens at sea, not many people know about it, and it's for the most part left up to the mass media of various countries to tell everyone else what happened. Actually, it's very often up to the military of various countries to relay that information to the mass media. It would be woefully naive to assume that such institutions would tell us the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. That's not their job. Their job is to win something, be it a war or an information war, or both. I'm sure the mass media in Yemen, on behalf of the military of Yemen, is telling their citizens that they didn't do nothing and that those Western pigs started it. I would very much like to side with the UK and the US on these matters, because those are two countries of which I am quite fond. At least the people of those countries are peoples of whom I am quite fond. But I'm nowhere near stupid enough to believe that our mass media outlets are any less corrupt than those of the Middle East. Not significantly. Anyway, it's very clear at this point that they're all propagandists and smear merchants, and that they tell more lies than truths. And it's never for the good of the populace. It's for the insidious advancement of their own power-hungry agenda. So I'm gonna land on a hard I don't know at this point. That's still allowed, folks. Did you know that? Did you know that you don't know? Did you know that you don't know known unknowns and unknown?
Did you know that you don't know the things that you don't know?
The worst mistake you can make is assuming you do know, because that's how you lose friends. That's how you make a fool of yourself, or a heartless bastard of yourself, in the cold light of context when history finally rears its ugly head. You don't have to know. You don't have to pretend to know, even if it's your job to pretend to know things. Everyone has their limits. My own limits certainly don't extend to recent events in the geopolitical struggle sessions of these hot wars. That said, I do have to wonder how many hot wars these post-Trump administrations can get us into before we begin to maybe err on the side of at least pondering the possibility that it's not a coincidence. How many smallish conflicts between nations large and small have to happen before it resembles one large conflict, i.e. a world war? And at what point do you have to be a retard not to at least wonder why none of it happened under Trump? Not a rhetorical question either. Do leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to be enlightened as to the specifics of how and why it's all somehow a coincidence. And
this is all stuff he was building up to back in his time. That's what they're gonna say. He was just building up to this moment, and he left it. It's like those old cars. You remember those cars? They have like a little motor in them, and you have to pull them back on the ground. And when you let them go, they go. They speed forward. It's like that. That's what he did. He dragged all these wars back. Back in 2016, he got them primed, and then he lost the election. Put that in quotes. And so he was like, "Oh, I guess I lost," and then the wars happened. See, it's like it's his 9-dimensional fucking Parcheesi, and that's what it is. That's what they're gonna say.
Yeah, it wasn't Biden. It was Trump, because Trump came before him.
Yes, that's right.
Who came before Trump? Does anyone remember? What aboutism?
Anyway, Night Motorcyclist says, I still have those cars. It's a Porsche 911. No batteries needed. It still works. Yeah, it was just like a rubber band and a spring or something, right? Those were, I have to say that when I was a kid, we had the best toys, Generation X.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the best toys. All right. Maybe before that, because the previous generation, they had like rifles and shit. Like
the previous generation play with radioactive shit.
Yeah.
Like, they were actually radioactive.
Yeah, this is made with pure asbestos.
And chemicals that could explode.
Yeah. Anyway, you can get BB guns here in Roanoke, though. Pretty cool, like for kids.
You can get BB guns here too.
Well, yeah, but no, not in Chicago though.
But yeah.
Anyway,
we used to do that too. We got into trouble for having BB gun fights.
Yeah, so. No, I bet. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're gonna move on to the next story.
Fucking super soakers in this country anymore.
Oh, super soakers.
I'm exaggerating, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I remember the Intertech battery-operated water guns, where it was like I had the Mac 10, and it was just like you put a battery in it, it would just shoot water like a machine gun. Anyway, all right, let's move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments.
The politicians are the super soakers now.
Yeah,
You're all getting soaked.
Okay, Alicia Owens, age 20. This is a little bit more of like a smaller scale. We're gonna get away from the global homo stuff. Alicia Owens, age 20, was arrested last week after the suspected poisoning and subsequent murder of her boyfriend's 18-month-old daughter. The daughter was rushed to the hospital last June after being found unresponsive. 4 days later, the child died in a hospital due to multiple organ failure. Owens lied and stated that the girl had fallen on her head after she had a cramp and fell out of bed. Upon autopsy of the child, it was revealed that she had ingested numerous batteries, water beads, and even metal screws. The ultimate cause of death was revealed to be acetone poisoning. When searching Owens' confiscated phone, it was revealed that she had numerous searches in her history for household products that were harmful or could kill children. She also searched for beauty products and medicine that could poison children. This breakthrough was what led to her arrest. Pennsylvania Attorney General Michelle Henry stated, quote, "The details of this case are heartbreaking. It is hard to fathom someone taking deliberate steps to harm a completely helpless child, then misled investigators about what happened. The investigation shows that, for months, the defendant conducted meticulous research on how certain substances harm children. She then allegedly acted on her findings," end quote. Owens faces a list of charges including homicide, attempted homicide, aggravated assault of a child, endangering the welfare of a child, and several other child abuse related charges.
You know what my biggest worry in all of this? It's children getting murdered. Largely by women, because women do most of the child murdering. And people generally assume women don't do that shit, so they keep getting away with it and assuming they can get away with it because God knows how often they actually do. But on top of that, when I first heard this story, I couldn't help thinking, why didn't she use NordVPN? This video is not sponsored, by the way. Other VPN services are available. But yeah, I have no doubt that every world government is constantly on the lookout for reasons to ban VPNs. For citizen use, of course, not for use by the powers that be. That stands to reason. And it's dumb bitches like this who think they can just Google "how do I kill children" or find cheap and effective child poison near me. Like that's not blatantly going to bite them in the ass. They're out here adding to the statistics of baby murdering mega cunts who were caught red-handed because they didn't use a VPN. That's exactly the sort of thing that politicians are going to point to when they make the case for banning VPNs. Just imagine how many of them got away with it because they had the common sense to do their research on a secured network. Free to use for the first month. Use promo code KILLBABY. And you can see why that would make a compelling case. Evidently, the massive black market for black tar heroin isn't a good enough reason to crack down on these things, but I'm sure they can really push things forward if they can make people terrified of brutal baby killings. I'm sure they'll find a way of pretending it's men who mostly do it, just to really amp up the fear porn. Because it wouldn't surprise me if most VPN providers have some kind of fail-safe for this very reason. Like, ISPN can't trace your internet searches, but maybe somewhere in the cloud, the VPN provider itself is recording everything you do, and they don't tell you about it at any point except in page 116, paragraph 9 of the small print in the terms and conditions that nobody reads. But the politicians who want to ban VPNs are clearly not going to mention that in their efforts to clamp down on this insidious scourge of online anonymity. And it's also in the interests of VPN services not to alert anyone to this information either, because that's how they sell their product. All these roads point closer and closer to the extinction of online anonymity. And it's going to happen. And when it does, every YouTuber who included a sponsorship from a VPN provider is going to have to take down every one of those videos or face life in prison where they'll mysteriously die of pneumonia. It doesn't bother me, of course. I've never had a sponsorship, and I never will, because YouTube has long since throttled my channel into obscurity. So I'm going to sit here laughing at you rich assholes while you scramble to remove 9,000 of your videos. My overall point is... Well, again, my overall point is don't murder babies in the first place, just in case it hadn't occurred to you that murdering babies is wrong. But also, you're representing a significant vector in the downfall of free speech and online anonymity. So just think that through, yeah? Won't somebody think of the YouTubers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at this and we see male criminals who have done far less egregious things demonized, not just at the time of their crimes, not just when they're being punished for their crimes, but for the rest of their lives. And anybody who doesn't go hard enough on them is also demonized right along with them. They get called apologists. Their career might even be attacked, right? If they don't go hard enough on these guys. If it's a judge that doesn't give the perpetrator enough time in jail, or if it's a prosecutor that fails to go after somebody that the public has deemed persona non gratis, and so on. Acetone poisoning is painful. This reminds me of a case that, you know, when we were newer to these issues, and I remember when the news story about it was read, I actually had to step away from the microphone for a while because it hit me so hard how bad this was. And it was a salt poisoning case where a mother had subjected her child to salt poisoning. And I know what salt poisoning feels like because I've accidentally done a much, much milder version of it to myself. Just by overeating salty things a lot. And so I was thinking about this kid's experience and what a child was put through, and it made me sick. This is, she tried to kill the child with battery acid.
Yep.
And battery acid is horribly caustic. Acetone is caustic enough to eat through mucous membranes, internal organs. It would be slow and it would be painful, and it causes you to experience other biological symptoms that lead to confusion, that lead to you being unable to describe it or explain your situation. And an 18-month-old, even if a 20-year-old would have trouble knowing what's going on, an 18-year-old would just have no idea why. They would just be suffering. She would just be suffering and not know why, not know when it was going to end, not have any comfort, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman did this to this child. And I guarantee you that if there's further coverage of this story, we're going to hear all about her and her mental health conditions and blah, blah, blah. We aren't going to hear the demonization that we would hear if she was a guy who, while drunk, had sex with a drunk woman, and the drunk woman passed out, and he didn't notice, right? Or if he was a guy who stalked a woman for a long time, and she was very upset about it. Or if he got into an argument with a woman on Twitter, and there was a long court case determining whether or not that's considered harassment. Or if he walked past a woman in an airport and she decided to make up a story about him that wasn't even true. She won't even be demonized as much as the falsely accused. She won't be demonized as much as people whose allegations are exaggerated. And she won't be demonized even as much as someone who did something that isn't even wrong. Right? It's pathetic the way that our society will handle this.
One thing I thought was interesting about this story is, and I know we've covered stories like this before, but I think it bears repeating. Well, one of the reasons why is because usually they don't get enough attention. Usually they get, they're like local stories, they get swept under the rug, or maybe there are parts of them that are so outrageous that, sites like the New York Post and the Daily Mail just feel like they have to report on it just because of how wild it is, but they're not necessarily doing it to observe any patterns. And so we're trying to bring attention to the patterns. And one of the things that that stood out for me is that, okay, typically when we talk about a step parent or the partner to a parent, and that partner or the step parent is abusive to the children because they're not their children, right? We almost always talk about men. So stepdads, are notoriously presented as abusive stereotypes or even murderous ones. And there are stories of that. And this is a real thing we have to kind of contend with, is that, step parents or stepfathers can be can make problems because for a number of reasons. But one of the main things is that those are not their kids, and so it's hard to get a stepfather invested. But what we don't talk about is the opposite of that, and this is an example. I was left thinking, why would this woman kill her boyfriend's daughter? Why would she do that? Why would she meticulously do it? And I think it's probably coming from the same place. It's like, I mean, we know women are more likely to abuse children. We know women are more likely to murder children. We know that. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I'm thinking about what the motive could be. And I think it is like, that's not my kid. I don't want to be involved with that kid. I mean, even moms who have their own children are frequently not invested. What was that?
Probably worse than just not being invested.
Yeah.
When a mother or a stepmother, anybody kills a kid, it's either to eliminate a drain or a draw, like this kid is too much trouble for them. They don't just want to not want to be involved or invested. They don't want to do the work of parenting the child, or there's something openly wrong with them to where they wanted to hurt somebody, and that's the most vulnerable person, right? But when it's in this particular,
or she sees the child as a drain on resources that could be hers,
right? Where it's a stepmother, it looks more like maybe the child cost money, and that was money that he couldn't spend on her. But I want to point something else out really quick too. The woozle that the most dangerous person in a child's life is the stepfather was created by the failure to read the entire publication from Health and Human Services Department's publications on child maltreatment. And so people haven't read the part where it says that the group fathers is both fathers and stepfathers, and the group mothers is both mothers and stepmothers. So when it says father and other or mother and other, it's somebody other than a step parent, somebody that's either not in a romantic relationship with the parent, or somebody who at least doesn't live with the parent. So the relationship, it hasn't progressed to the point where the partner is being called a step parent, which technically under the law, you're not a step parent until you marry the parent. So they may be live-in boyfriends and girlfriends, but not step parents. But the actual step parents are considered parents in that publication, and women still kill more than twice as often as men in terms of women who get counted as parents versus men who get counted as parents, whether they're actually the parent, the biological parent, or the step parent. And if you're a step parent listening, don't get insulted that I said that. I'm a stepmom. And there is a connection children have with their biological parents that they don't have with you, and that's just a fact, right? Even if it's not an emotional connection, even if it's just a biological connection. So it's it is a woozle to say that the most dangerous person in a child's life is the stepfather, because even including stepfathers and fathers together, women, mothers and stepmothers together, far outnumber them in fatal child abuse.
Yeah. Wow. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I'm going to move on to the next story, or the last story, rather. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. All right. So, very sad. It's a very sad story, but we have to know that women are capable of these things. It's like like Hannah said, it's some of the biggest woozles, and it's what prevents people from looking at this and taking it seriously. All right. Sydney, Ireland, pictured here, 22, spent 9 years fighting to become a Boy Scout with her family's support. Speaking to the Daily Mail, Sydney recalled the moment she realized boys had, quote, more opportunities available to them, end quote, after she saw her brother join the Boy Scouts. I wanted to join. Initially because my older brother Brian joined the Cub Scouts, she said. I wanted to do the same fun things that he got to do, like go camping, earn badges, and be a member of a group that cares about leadership and personal development. At 11 years old, Sydney earned the Arrow Light Award, the highest achievement in Cub Scouts, but apparently none of her efforts were official because she was a girl. Sydney explains, quote, once I realized that all the work I had done to achieve the award was not official, I wanted to change that for other young girls and young women so everyone could benefit from scouting, end quote. Sydney told DailyMail.com, quote, my family and I started writing resolutions asking the Boy Scouts to open their doors to young women, and at the same time, gay scouts and adult leaders. I spoke at the New York Presbytery and the National Organization for Women, oof, that's a powerhouse, passing resolutions through both groups. We then started a change.org petition which catalyzed the movement to become internationally supported, end quote. Sydney's activism enabled her to speak with former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, as well as Gloria Steinem, and even attend the State of the Union in 2019. In 2017, the Boy Scouts opened its programs to girls, and 2 years later, the Boy Scouts has been renamed to Scouts BSA. Now a dramatic feature film is being created about Sydney, Ireland. Now, before we give the comments on this, I just want to say that we did report on this back when they said that they were opening up the Boy Scouts. This was probably when it happened in 2017. So this is more like, oh, here's the person or one of the people behind it that made it happen. And apparently they're going to make a movie about it because we haven't had enough of this girl boss propaganda already. But anyway, that's the story. So let us know what you guys think. What do you think?
So there were other ways that girls could have been given the same advantages as boys in terms of scouting. There is already a scout organization for girls, and they could have worked with Boy Scouts of America to make their organization as beneficial to girls as Boy Scouts of America is, in terms of, like, if you want to go into the military, you start at a higher pay grade if you reach the top level at study
Boy Scout,
as a
yeah.
Boy Scout. It's a lot of work. I've seen guys do this, and you really have to be dedicated for that. But it does, if it's something that you can put on a resume, it's something that, you know, it's not just a benefit in the military. When people find out that you are an Eagle Scout, then they have a higher level of respect for you, and so on. And Girl Scouts could have done that. Girl Scouts had every opportunity to go to the Boy Scouts and say, we want to actually be a sister organization. We want to actually train girls on the same level that Boy Scouts train boys. We want to actually provide girls with the same level of skills and the same capabilities. And I am sure that the leadership in the Boy Scout organization would have said, yeah, let's do that. Let's partner. And we'll have the boys' side and the girls' side. And that way, you know, you can have environments that are great learning environments for kids where they don't have the distraction of the opposite sex, and they get all of the benefit of this great learning. And it would have been wonderful It would have been a fabulous step forward for all of the kids, but they didn't do that. They did nothing like that. Instead, they went their own way, did things their own way, had to be girly about everything, and had to maintain this idea of girliness, never put any effort into changing the situation whatsoever, and then complained when girls who have maybe a little more initiative and maybe a little more ambition than most of the girls that are involved in the Girl Scouts looked at the Boy Scouts and went, yeah, we would rather do that.
The Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts are different in a way outside of the gender too.
Yeah, they're not just different outside of gender. They're not even like they're not partner organizations.
No.
They weren't started together. They had completely different pathways, but they could have. Like if I had started an organization for girls and there was an organization for guys that was doing better than me, I'd go to them for advice. The first thing I would think of is these guys know what they're doing. I haven't done everything that I could be doing. I'm going to go talk to them and find out, if they'd be interested in a partnership and figuring out a way that we can be as beneficial to both sexes as they are to boys, and they can get, kudos for helping us step up, and we can get kudos for having the initiative to step up. That would be, I don't understand. I wish I could say that. I do understand why the Girl Scouts didn't do it. It didn't do it because the leadership is women, and women don't do that. Like most of the time, women don't do that. And the girls that did are the ones that didn't fit in and wanted to join the Boy Scouts. Now, that doesn't give them the right to take over a boy's space.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing the Boy Scouts could have done is they could have looked at the situation and said, gosh, there's an environment for boys that we've created that is great, and then there's an environment for girls that somebody else created that is, it's okay, but it's not as great. And there's a bunch of girls that want what we have created for boys. Why don't we create a sister organization that is offered to girls without taking away boys' space? And they didn't do that either. And in my opinion, that's a bigger shame than it is that the Girl Scouts didn't try to work with them to improve themselves.
Yep.
That is a huge, they've let boys down doing this in a big way. Male mentorship and male companionship and male collaboration and cooperativeness, male spaces are being and have been targeted since before any Gen Xer was born. Boomer women started it in the early part of the 20th century when they were in their 20s. In fact, to a degree, I can't remember what the name of the generation was right before the Boomers. It wasn't. I don't think it was the greatest generation. There's a one in between, but there were women in that space, in that generation, that started going after men's spaces, and it's crap, because women equally, as much as they are trying to take away men's spaces and boys' spaces, demand that women's spaces be respected. And they make it out like it's a safety issue, that men and boys are somehow dangerous just by virtue of their sex, not for any other reason. Dangerous, threatening, toxic, and otherwise harmful to women, and women need a break from them. All right, but guys are not allowed to have their own spaces, right? And here they are. They've now taken over so many spaces for adult men that they are going after children's spaces, boys' spaces.
Yep.
It's pathetic.
Yep.
And the last bastion of that should be organizations that are run by more I don't like to use the word conservative, but more actually traditional people. Not neo-trad cons, but people that their lifestyle has been the tradition in our culture throughout, written history.
Yeah.
That should be the last hurdle, not just hurdle, but wall that they come up against when they try to do this. And instead, the Boy Scouts just open the door, and not just a little door, with a little door handle in the wall. Big fucking bay doors,
Dude, yeah, like the National Organization for Women, Nancy Pelosi and Gloria Steinem were all behind her.
Don't let those guys.
It was like, yeah. No, of course not. The Girl Scouts was like I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it's a statist organization. It wasn't like the Boy Scouts, which was kind of like a Christian thing that started up on its own, like separate. It was about like helping boys become men. That was like the whole point of it. And basically creating a program or a let's say an activity group for boys to prepare them for manhood is in a lot of ways also preparing them for disposability. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but we unfortunately don't live in a world where we can use women in that way. If we could, we would live in peace. But because we do live in the world as it is, then boys have to be prepared for the possibility of having to defend their country, defend their family, defend their community. And the Boy Scouts helps them with that.
Self-sufficient.
Yeah, to be self-sufficient. But I'm saying like all those other things will. My point is this: Girl Scouts getting involved, none of the expectations, not only to qualify to be one, but what would normally come after. Like some people were saying, and I know that you said this, I think, if you had, as a young man, you had plans to join the military, if you were an Eagle Scout, then it gave you like a benefit when you joined the military. Okay. Yeah, so there's like a clear path from like, oh, I want to learn how to essentially survive on my own. I want to learn to be self-sufficient. I want to learn to survive in the wild. I want to camp. I want to do all these activities. I want to learn all these skills. And there's these men and they're going to help me and they're going to mentor me. Right. It's exactly what young men need, especially today, is just that. And then if that same man later on is like, oh, I want to fight for my country, I want to join the military, there's a lot of benefits. You can make good money. I mean, this is like in theory. I'm not talking about today's military, but I mean back then, if you were like, well, I want to know how to operate this equipment, I want to be an engineer, I want to do these things, there was like a clear path that worked very well for men. But when girls got involved, they weren't thinking about it in those terms. They were thinking simply, oh, there are men over there doing something and I don't know anything about it and I feel excluded from it and I want to be in it. And so all of these powerful women like Nancy Pelosi, Gloria Steinem, and the National Organization for Women, they were like, we're going to get you in there. And none of those expectations are on them. And they're disrupting a space that boys need. Right. And of course, this is like not benefiting anyone. And the Girl Scouts, it was never created for any of those things. It was just to be like the opposite. And that's why it had to be a status thing. The Girl Scouts is status because girls would not, by and large, choose to be a part of that unless they made it appealing for them, and it had to be a completely different thing. And there is a way. I think that there is some value in young men learning from older men about, what it is to be a man, like these skills that they might need. There's a benefit to that. And I think that there's also that, a way that girls can benefit from women, like grown women, but it's not being applied the right way. And this girl, she's not none of the stuff that she's gotten out of changing the Boy Scouts on a fundamental level, none of that stuff's going to benefit her at all. Like she doesn't need any of it. She can just get married or just get some other job, like use DEI, like to get a position someplace, or just be like an important political figure for no reason and just make a lot of money from, NGOs like Nancy Pelosi and Gloria Steinem and the National Organization for Women. So none of this is actually going to do anything for her. All it does is take away from the boys. That's all it does. And her father is like right there, smiling like a fucking jack-o'-lantern because he's a simp for his daughter. And I'm like, I mean, you're not doing her any favors, in my opinion. I don't think she benefits from that. I think that everyone loses.
The tricky thing about tradition, one of the tricky things about tradition, is that it exists on a very wide spectrum. There's this quote, and I can't remember who said it. It's something like, tradition is the solution to a problem that is long since forgotten.
Yeah.
We can't remember what the problem was because long ago we came up with a solution to it, and it became the stuff of tradition. Right? There's a reason we hold a festival at or around the winter solstice, because if we didn't, then the winter would become a horribly depressing period with no solace in sight. Mm-hmm. There's a reason we make men the providers and women the nurturers. It's because that's what biology has set us up to be for God knows how long, and we forget that to our perpetual detriment. But that doesn't mean every tradition is of that nature. Circumcision is a tradition.
Yes.
That doesn't mean it's a solution to a problem that needs to be implemented. It absolutely is not. And that's why it's difficult to get this shit across when a tradition is a solution to a long forgotten problem, because you can't remember if the problem was even a problem or if it wasn't. Like, boys having foreskins is not a problem, but if you have a tradition that says it is, then how are you supposed to differentiate that from a tradition that's actually important? Mm-hmm. And the idea of educating boys to understand nature, to be able to survive in nature, is obviously important, because that's how we survived for the longest of times, and I mean Stone Age times. Like the importance of learning how to survive in nature is just about the most important tradition we could have. We've completely forgotten about it now that we have this automated society. And the same does not go for the Girl Guides. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't. Or the fucking brownies or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's no absence of a tradition for women to perform their stereotypical female roles of being nurturing, especially towards children. You don't need a tradition for that. Women will automatically figure it out, because it's not even mimetic. It's a genetic drive, whereas the drive for men to remember how to make tools is not genetic. It's if after a couple of generations of not remembering this shit, we would be plunged back into the Stone Age, where we would have to remember how the fuck to make bows and wheels and shit like that. And that appears to be the difference, that so many traditions that we call masculine traditions are mimetic traditions. Things that are passed down from generation to generation, and only through information that doesn't exist in the genome. And yeah, it's difficult to get this across to people who have selective memory when it comes to evolutionary psychology. People just think that everyone is the same blank slate human being. I've run out of things to say, but you go.
I hear you.
One thing I can point out about the importance of teaching boys specifically how to survive in nature is this: if your provider of resources is government, corporations, even just the guy down the street that owns a farm that you no longer know how to run or even emulate on a small scale, you're dependent. And if you're dependent, that's an area, that's an avenue, an inroad for control over your life from the outside. People who can control your access to food, shelter, safety, comfort, they can control you. They can tell you what you will and won't do, what you will and won't want, what you will and won't object to them doing to other people, and so on.
Yeah.
Because if you buck them, they will take that away from you. And so, specifically, historically, it has been, in terms of defending the freedom of a country on the inside, it has been men. It has been men who have been the reason why tyranny cannot take hold in a particular country. And it is men who are targeted first in order to make room for tyranny to take hold in a particular country. When the targeting is done in a way that disables and denies and takes away, women are targeted with propaganda. Men are targeted with demonization and crippling efforts. And so, if men are capable, uniquely, specifically, are capable of bucking the system by saying, fuck you, I don't need your farm, I can go out into the woods and I can survive there without you, then that takes away from the ability to establish tyranny. If women can do that, you can still target them with propaganda, and you can still persuade them to accept all manner of tyrannical things, and that's been demonstrated very clearly here in the United States, right? So it has to be men and boys who are taught those skills. And it's not that it's not okay to teach women and girls those skills as well, but they should not be able to take over a men's space for the development of those skills, a boy's space for the development of those skills, and shape it to suit their own needs, because it is vital to the interests of free people and the ability of a free people to remain free that boys who want to learn those skills, who are interested in learning those skills, and actually have the aptitude and the interest, the attitude, and the capability, that they're allowed to do that without female interference. Right? That's one of the reasons why women like Nancy Pelosi would target organizations like the Boy Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
Their existence helps men to resist tyranny in a way that women never do.
Yep. That's exactly right. This is why they're on this. This is like a political campaign to demoralize and weaken men, because men are the primary obstacle. I've been saying this for years. Especially a man who is self-sufficient and doesn't need them. They need people who need them. And this is also why, as Allison has put it, they are the party of single women. A woman without a husband is the perfect voting block, and that's what they've created. They've created a voting block of women that are terrified and dependent on the state. Anyway, Allison says that someone named Randall is attempting to send a super chat. It's getting stuck in the tubes. But I'm at the end of my show, so unless something goes through in the next couple of minutes, I'm gonna have to just read it on the next one. So, but don't worry, I will read it on the next show if I don't read it here. But Randall, if you're having trouble, maybe just, I don't know, tag us in a comment, or I'll just read it on the next one when it goes through. So, I don't know, maybe this is like Allison did, but anyway, we should, though, end the show here and head into the patron show, where we're going to be looking at some stuff from Fandom Pulse. So we're going to do that now. If you guys can join us, please go to feedthebadger.com and create a membership. Start a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to watch the after show and hang out with us there. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys. If you just want to see what the community is like, you can just go to the free portion by going to badgernation.online. That'll get you into our Discord as well. It's the same Discord, it's just a little bit less access. So we're gonna head out from there. If you, let me see here, I don't have any other nothing's come through yet, but I'm gonna end the show. So I'll see you guys in there. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thanks guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we'll talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.